In this video, we will discuss using polylines and lines in a 3D world. If you'd like to follow along with this video, please open the file using polylines in a 3D world.dwg located in the working files folder as discussed in the working with this dataset video. So let's talk about wireframe modeling using lines and polylines in the 3D realm, and we will discuss some of the limitations and techniques that we can use. We'll also discuss some of the modification tools as well that you can use to modify your wireframe model within the 3D realm. What we're going to do is we're going to build a roof. If you look at the completed drawing, these objects are all simple AutoCAD objects that you can use to draw on different planes by simply rotating the UCS and using simple modification and creation tools. So let's go ahead and start. The first thing I want to do is check our settings. First, verify that dynamic input is turned on, polar tracking is turned on, O tracking is turned on, your O snaps are set to endpoint, midpoint, center, intersection, and extension. Selection cycling is turned on. This will help us cycle between objects that are on top of each other when we move and position our cursor above them. So what we have in the drawing so far is 4 arcs. These arcs were simply placed at a specific elevation and copied around the drawing. Now what we want to do to draw that roof that you saw at the beginning was to first draw a polygon. We'll trim it out to have the top of the roof created. Let's navigate to the Home tab, draw a panel, and we have the polygon tool right here. Now, before we start the polygon command, we have to think about how the UCS is rotated right now. Right now, it's at the WCS. We need to create our polygon at this angle's rotation and this angle's rotation to be at these arcs. You do not need to move your UCS to those objects' endpoints. You can simply rotate the UCS in the parallel plane that you need to create these objects. So let's select our UCS icon, and we'll just simply rotate the y-axis straight up. Now what we can do is start the polygon command. We want 6 sides, and we want to snap to the center of the arc, and let's choose the inscribed in circle option. When you're done with that, simply snap to the endpoint of the arc, and there's the first one created. Press enter to repeat the command, press enter for 6-sided. Let's grab the center again, inscribed, and snap, and there's our completed polygon. Now we want to draw it in this plane here. Again, simply rotate the UCS with the axis you want to rotate it about. I'll pick the X direction here, and using polar tracking, just rotate it 90 degrees. We're now in that plane. Press enter to repeat the command, 6 for 6-sided. We'll grab the center of the arc, pick inscribed, and then snap to the endpoint. Press enter, enter again, and just go through the motions of creating those polygons. Let's change our UCS back to the WCS. Now let's do a simple trim to get rid of the bottom of the polygon. That's where the building will exist, and we just want the top part to get the roof. We'll start the trim command. When prompted to select objects, simply select the arcs as our cutting elements. Right-click or enter. Now let's look at the command line options available. The one we need to look at is the project option. If you go ahead and click project, you have 3 options. You can choose none, UCS, and view. What this allows you to do is either lock in a specific plane to trim about, or you can say none, or you can use the view. When trimming out standard AutoCAD objects that have different elevations, you want to set this to view. What it allows you to do is it takes the view's orientation and simply projects it onto the different objects as their cutting edges. So if we simply hover over this one here, you'll notice it's trimming it out to this part of the arc there and this part of the arc here. However, if we rotate the view around to make sure we have the entire object free of any other cutting elements, this will trim out the entire part. So that's what you have to do. Just do a shift middle click and simply make sure you have all of the different parts of the object you want to trim out in the view without any obstruction from the other cutting edges. Press enter to end the command. Now we have our wireframe part for the roof. Let's go ahead and freeze, using the layer freeze command, the arcs. Press enter to end the command. Now what we can do is simply start drawing lines. So let's start the line command, and let's simply connect the dots here. So we'll snap there, enter, enter to end the command and repeat it, just using standard AutoCAD functionality here. And we're just going to simply connect the dots as we need to. Again, enter, enter to end the command, and then enter, enter to begin the command to get it to the points that you want it to. Note that sometimes, as you're seeing here, ortho lock kicks in. To disable this again, simply toggle on polar tracking, and then you're ready to go. We'll complete the rest of the line work, snapping here to there, press enter, and lastly, here to there. Again, don't forget, shift middle click to rotate the view. So we're almost done. The only thing left to do is to drape some line work across the top of the roof so we can complete our trimming in the end. So if you try to do this with a regular polyline, you will not be able to do this. A polyline is strictly a 2D object. The second you snap to a specific elevation, it will lock in that elevation, and no matter where you snap to, it will not honor the elevations you snap to. So there is a 3D polyline command. This allows you to snap to any of the elevations you need to. Now, sometimes with the 3D polyline command, it can act a little buggy. So sometimes it's best to make sure you have all the vertices you want to snap to in your view, because when you go to orbit, it sometimes acts a little funny and you have to restart the command. So I'm going to be in the top view here. I'm going to simply snap to the intersection of these locations here and then snap to the endpoint there. Press escape to end the command. Now, as you do a shift middle click, you'll notice we have draped that polyline across the entire roof at the different elevations. Now we're ready to trim. So let's start the trim command. Now, one of the things that people don't notice when you start the trim command is that there's a select all option in the command line window. So instead of me having to make a selection set of the different objects I want to use as cutting elements, I can simply press enter. Now every object in the file is a cutting element. Our project mode is set to view, so just make sure you have the view the way that you want it to be. So I'll simply rotate my view this way, and we'll go ahead and get this top part right there. Rotate my view this way here. Grab that object there, and while we're here, grab that one as well. Note that we will have to delete some objects in the end, and we'll rotate the view here, trim out that part, and this part. Note that while we're here, you cannot trim this one out because this will be a delete. Lastly, we'll make sure we go this way here to get this object here. Notice how when we do this, we can simply grab it like so, and it grabs the whole entity that we needed to trim. Press escape, and what I'm going to do is simply select my objects that I want to delete. So I'll select this one here, select this one, and this one, press delete, and there's only one part left to trim out. So let's go ahead and start the trim command again, press enter, and select this object there. And here is our completed wireframe of the roof that we want to eventually hatch with. We're almost there. Now to hatch the different locations of the roof, what you have to do is at least move your UCS onto the plane that you want to hatch. We'll go ahead and select the UCS icon, and let's first start with the top one by simply moving it with the square grip right up here. Just verify that your UCS is set to the flat top part of the roof. Let's go ahead and start the hatch command. Let's set our hatch style. Let's set our pattern to ARB 816, scale set to 1, and we'll use the current hatch color for the layer. And let's go ahead and click on the pick points option to see if we can flood this area. So because we moved the UCS to this location, we should be able to simply click here, and as you can see, it automatically finds the boundary of that object because the UCS is actually on the top of the roof. Press enter to complete the hatch. Let's go ahead and continue this by simply moving the UCS icon down to this location here, and we'll go ahead and select it again, change the Y to this location there. Let's start the hatch command. Now let's try to hatch it again using the pick internal point. If you click and look at the command line window, it says valid hatch boundary not found. This will sometimes happen. Don't panic. Press escape, redraw an object. Go ahead and choose the select boundary objects option within the hatch ribbon. What AutoCAD allows you to do is it allows you to individually select the objects you want to hatch. Now, as you select it, you might get some sort of funky preview. Keep going and don't panic. Make sure you select all the boundaries. And when you do that, as you can see, it is completed. Pretty cool stuff. Let's go ahead and grab the UCS icon again. We'll grab it here, pick the Y, snap here, and then we'll pick the X and snap here. We'll start the hatch command. We're in select object mode, so we'll just pick these objects here. Notice how having selection cycling is helping us because it allows us to choose the 3D polyline. And in this case, the line, and now we're done. Again, simply select it, Notice how ortholock kicked in? Sometimes this happens. Simply change it to polar tracking if you want to. Snap to the midpoint. I'll grab my X, rotate it over here, grab my Y, and go perpendicular to this line. Again, just verify that you're on that plane, and then go around with the hatch command and simply select the boundary objects you need to for the hatch. Complete the other side as necessary. If we go to our layout, notice that even with wireframe modeling, you can still get the design intent across, and if this is good enough, then this is good enough. There's no reason to create 3D solids if it is not necessary.